Okay, why am I back here? Pick up the gun. Dude, no, I've already played Ultrakill before for the channel. I have other games to get to now. Pick up the gun. Bro, I gotta play Clair Obscur, I gotta play the Devil May Cry series, I gotta play all these random roguelikes sitting in my library. If you pick up the gun, this anime girl will think you're cool. Fine, I'll pick up the damn gun! I suppose I have a few more things to get to in this game. Welcome back to Ultrakill. I made a video on this game a while back, but before, that video had horrible bitrate. I fixed that this time around, hopefully, but that's still a decent video, so, go watch it maybe. Anyways, there was a few things I missed in this video, and the comments let me know that. So, I am here to cover those missed things today. This is my road to Sisyphus Prime, which is the second secret boss currently in the game, which involves P-ranking every level up to 6-2. Okay, I think you can guess what this video is about. Time to shake off some rust. It's been a while, but I still have all my weapons, luckily. Also, I learned from the comments on the last video that you could parry your own shotgun shots. Well, that's pretty fucking awesome. Anyway, let's see how many resets these early levels cost me. Spoiler, more than they really should have. The prologue took 6 resets in total. One was in the 0-1 from missing enemies. Nothing dramatic, just didn't find them. The other 5 all happened to be in 0-2. Getting turned into a red mist by hydraulic presses? Hell yeah. Well, I suppose it's not actually a red mist because V1 is a robot, but like, you know what I mean. I got vaporized. 0-3 was surprisingly clean though. I notoriously suck at fighting sword machine and ferrymen. Can't hit their parries normally, even on a good day, but this time was different for some reason. Do I know that reason? Not at all. 2 more levels, and after that, with 2 resets in 0-4, one from whiffing a parry. Yeah, I'll own that one. That's on me. And one where I just decided to restart for no reason. I'm a little bit trigger happy on the reset button, I guess. But that's all up to the boss level, 0-5. Boss level was smooth. Realized the saw gun does some insane damage. And finally hit my first shotgun parry. And from here on out, I'm gonna be spamming those for the rest of my days. They are so much fun. That's all for the prologue. I don't want to be too long on that because it's the prologue. Come on. I'll keep going level by level, but first, let's look at the total for the first part of Act 1, Limbo. Any guesses? Well, I can't actually tell you if you're right or not, but Limbo took a grand total of 3 resets. As for why Limbo took less than the actual prologue, I don't want to talk about it, but level 1 was actually pretty clean. I've realized how forgiving the style points are in the early levels. I only had the Ultrakill rank for like a second at the end of the level after parry fishing for like 30 seconds straight, and I still got an S rank. Kinda nuts. Level 1-2 was relatively the same, even with time losses of getting somewhat lost because I don't remember the levels that well. I still P-ranked it first try. Onto the more juicy things though, 1-3 was not as smooth as the first 2 because it took me 2 resets in this level, both from the same shit, which is kind of funny. I don't know why, I just kind of suck at the red skull path in this level, which you need to do for the kills S rank, and I died once at the very start of the red path, and for my second reset, a second time, a little further in. Not much progress, but after this mishap, level 3 was smooth sailing, and now I just gotta go P-rank the boss level, which is fairly certain because I have practiced V1 a fair bit. Nothing crazy like those videos you see online with the coin bouncing and parrying those coins. Speaking of which, I don't know how people do that. I tried it multiple times, but I just can't hit my own coins. Anyways, nothing crazy for the fight. I did royally mess up on my first attempt. Oh well, that caused me a death. But after that, I did just play a bit more passive because the boss fight levels have a very forgiving S rank, especially after doing the skips. So clearing V1 was easy peasy, and Limbo is done in 3 resets. Not terrible. On to the second part of Act 1, and in this act, it took me a whopping 8 resets. That's more like it. In theory, the further I go, the more resets that will be required. Or at least that's my theory. On to 2-1, and out of 8 resets, 5 of them were on 2-1 Bridge Burner. This level was quite the struggle. Apparently, for some reason, it was pretty well always in the tower. Either dying in the tower just regularly, searching for enemies and dying in the tower, just blatantly missing enemies in the tower, or whatever the hell happened here. There were some resets in the tower. There were 2 more resets, of course, but they were just regular me being a chud kind of deaths. Anyways, after trial and error, I cleared Bridge Burner, and that's a majority of my resets for Lust done. On to 2-2, and this is 3 resets. Does this mean that all my resets came from 2-1 and 2-2? Yeah, but at least this one wasn't stupid deaths. I just genuinely couldn't find all the enemies, which, for the record, was the same issue I had on this level way back when I first P-ranked it. For some reason, the dev decided to put a group of the filth enemies in this random house in the last part of the level, which took 3 runs to find. Yeah, that's kind of annoying, but in good news, since that's all my resets, 2-3 and 2-4 were both first tries. 2-3 is a rather annoying level for this as well because the layout is confusing, and the Mind Flayer can do some bad things to me. Please. But the actual risk of dying isn't that bad, unless you use the electric railgun underwater. Don't do that. As for 2-4, this is probably one of the easiest boss fights in the entire game in my opinion, but the hallway hand can be a little difficult sometimes. Also, remember in this fight, if he tries to summit 1G you, just parry forehead. After all of that, we move on to the last layer of Act 1, which is Gluttony, which only took me a whopping 3 resets. It is only 1 level and a boss fight, so I think it makes sense to get 3. And speaking of which, for the level, I think 3-1 is one of the most satisfying levels in the game. I think it's pretty easy personally, but it is still hectic enough to feel wild and very satisfying. Anyway, since there's no resets on 3-1, let's have a look at 3-2, the first Gabriel fight. Here's all the resets. I think I will always die to Gabriel at least a few times, especially when fishing for parries like I usually do. And that seems to be exactly how I died this time. You may say, wow, he dies a lot fishing for parries. Well, you're damn right I do. But then I hit them sometimes, and boom, look at that, Gabriel is dead. That's all of Act 1. Let me check my notes. Act 1 took 14 resets, and Minos took 15. All right, not bad. Wait, no, I read that wrong. Minos took 15 resets alone, so Act 1 took 29 resets. Thanks, Minos. You're my goat. That is significantly less cool, but let's have a look at P1. Minos Prime is one of my favorite fights in this game, if not my favorite. When you die, it truly is just a skill issue, and honestly, 15 resets for a P rank isn't that bad, I think. I spent a lot of the resets just practicing the fight, just staying in and dying over and over, relearning the parries, figuring out what the best ways for me to deal with his attacks are. I'm doing what I'm comfortable with because I ain't got all that motion other Ultrakill players have, I'll be honest. There were a couple resets to the Flesh Prison as well, but you know what? I don't want to talk about that thing. Eventually, I was doing full attempts, including the run back. Actually pretty good for clearing my head. Not so good when I get to the actual fight and die immediately, but eventually, I got consistent. And there was no crazy special hype moment here. I cleared Minos Prime with a decent amount of attempts, but I'm proud of that amount. On to Act 2, the act that actually has Sisyphus within it. I actually have not P-ranked these levels beforehand, so this should be interesting. On to the first layer, Greed. 3 resets total. Damn, that's not bad at all, especially since I remember struggling here in my first playthrough. Guess that's what practice does over time. Starting with 4-1, it took me 1 reset. This is the introduction to the angel enemies and the dual wielding power-up, which is pretty cool. Hell yeah, motherfucker! Aw, man, a little bit too much juice here. Besides that, smooth sailing. So, moving on to 4-2, and here are the other 2 resets out of 3. There seems to be a reoccurring thing where all my resets happen on the first 2 levels of a layer. Anyways, 4-2 is crazy fast-paced, constant action, but these stupid little drone bastards pepper you with projectiles until eventually you mess up and it forces a restart. I don't like these things at all. But with that aside, it's not a bad level. Love the name as well. God damn the sun. On to the next 2. And there wasn't any resets on 4-3 or 4-4. However, I do need to make a point that I am so surprised I first tried 4-3. This level's a hassle for kills because the darkness makes it so easy to miss enemies, and you won't know until the very end when you do. I feel like I sound like a grumpy old man here. Maybe I am just a grumpy old man, but hey, the level was clean, very cool, very nice. Finishing up with this layer is the V2 rematch round, and this fight is clean. Knowing the shortcut makes the P rank super attainable because if you just space yourself well in the fight, you won't get one shot by the nail gun, and it's been chilling. Also, if you can clear V2's first health bar, it's smooth sailing because the sliding sequence is super easy, and there's just a few enemies placed to demonstrate the grapple ability afterwards. My final remarks on this layer, yep, V2 is very dead. It was a clean first layer. Now, how many resets did the second layer, Wrath, take? Only 4 resets. I did all of Act 2 in one sitting. It was actually cooking. Shook off all the rust. And on normal difficulty, P ranking is very attainable. Anyways, on to 5-1, and this level's nice. No issues. Straightforward pathing. Clear rooms, get skulls, kill enemies, and that's it. The bane of P ranking levels normally is missing enemies, but there's no chance of that here. I did die though, on the last room. A full restart here was kind of tough, but I can't complain too much. As for 5-2, I'm only going up from here. No resets on this level, and honestly, this was the level I was most afraid of for Act 2, because like I briefly mentioned earlier, I suck at the ferryman fight. Other than the ferryman though, as well, there is a double angel statue room, which can get pretty dicey at times, but even with all of this in the level, I managed to clear it first try. I'd like to think I actually improved with fighting ferrymen and sword machines, but I will taste how incorrect that is later. 5-3 for Act 2 was smooth enough, 1 reset, not bad for a level as long as this one. The rotating mansion-like area gets really confusing, so honestly, I was a bit concerned for getting an S rank on time, but that was all good. The problem lied in a very depressing overcommit that was quite far into the level. I tend to have that problem, especially since I have the lower left of the HUD turned off because I don't know, I think it looks better. This probably cost me a few resets later, but worth it to be honest. Also, another thing, this is the rocket launcher level, and I just want to point out, I'm still not good with any form of the rocket launcher, so I hardly use them. If anyone has any tips on how to use the damn thing in any of its forms, please let me know. That's enough of 5-3 though, because I'm gonna get motion sickness watching my footage back in 4 times speed. On to 5-4, the Leviathan boss fight. Another easy boss. Not quite as easy as the Corpse King, but super fun with all the parries and the grappling the flesh creature for big damage. I did take 1 reset though. I died fishing for parries. God damn it, not again! It's not a big deal. The spectacle of this fight is top tier though. Starting underwater, seeing a glimpse of the beast before you fight, super cool. But that clears up all of Wrath now, so I can finally move on to the last 2 levels required to unlock the secret boss of Act 2. Heresy as a layer is honestly peak. You'd think this is the final boss of the game with a crazy level with the Cry for the Weeper or 6-1. My only gripe, why does the start of the soundtrack sound like a microwave? Anyways, super fun level. Love crawling through a Doom dungeon, but back on track, this level took me 4 resets, which isn't too bad. The level is pretty long, and I think there's a reasonable amount of areas where dying isn't uncommon. Most of these areas are near the end of the level, which really sucks, and I died there twice, but the most unexpected part for me was dying twice in the dark room at the beginning. This caught me a little off guard, because I wasn't expecting to die here at all. Honestly, I was expecting to die in the last part of the level with the double hideous masses, but there was no issues when I got to it. Anyways, that's enough about 6-1. Let's go move on to the second Gabriel fight. 6-2 is simply for Gabriel, and luckily I also know the shortcut to this one, but it's a little bit more difficult to pull off. Not an actual problem. Let's look at how many resets this took. 16 resets! Damn! I mean, fair enough though. This fight is pretty tough. Gaby Boy here is really locked in this fight, and I had no real strat for this. Fully just beat my head against a wall chimp style, and that kind of worked. Parrying in this fight is decently difficult, but crazy rewarding I find, so I kept going for it, and eventually I did hit some parries, especially on the range attacks. Overall, the resets were really quick though. Pretty sure most were at the very start of phase 2. Eventually, I do clear with a P rank, and now, finally, for better or for worse, I can enter the secret level of Act 2. Oh yeah, here it is. Oh, fuck me. Oh, also, quick side note. That layer took me 20 total resets, for those who are curious. This is the Sisyphus Prime level, P2. And for this, I will not be going for a P rank yet. I was debating it, but after my first clear, I genuinely don't think I can. It's a skill issue. I would probably go for it if the first part of the level was a bit shorter, but getting through the first part of the level with no deaths is kind of a crazy ask for me right now. Anyways, I'll mention my resets on this one after I show you my full clear. For now, let's look at P-2. I had no idea what I was getting myself into here. I thought it was going to be like Minos. Quiet run, mini boss, boss fight. Instead, I walked into a meat grinder. This level is a brutal gauntlet. First room throws 4 golems and a ferryman at you, with 2 unkillable angels waiting outside. Then, there's a church area with annoying mind flayers and a double Sisyphean fight afterwards. And after that, there was a blood hallway that was less difficult and more absolutely tilting. Falling into the blood, getting stuck under platforms, bouncing and hitting my head on the roof. Generally, a bad experience. I thought that was the end though, but little did I know, there was one more gauntlet. A giant 3-phase room with an immortal sand monster covering some of the hardest enemies in the game with sand. Remember how I said I'd gotten better with these ferrymen and sword machines? Yeah, I was completely wrong about that. These guys were phase 1 and gave me the most trouble out of all of them. Phase 2 adds an invincible hideous mass and 2 waves of enemies. That's why I call it 3-phase. And whenever I died to either of these, I had to do phase 1 all over again. Honestly, this was probably more trouble than Sisyphus himself. But eventually, I got through and was rewarded with the difficult boss fight I'd been asking for. And inside the big flesh prison is the big man himself, Sisyphus Prime.
A visitor? Indeed, I have slept long enough. The kingdom of heaven has long since forgotten my name, and I am eager to make them remember. However, the blood of Minos stains your hands, and I must admit, I'm curious about your skills, weapon, and so, before I tear down the cities and crush the armies of heaven, you shall do as an appetizer. Come forth, child of man, and die.
And and this is a really damn challenging fight, as I'm sure you probably know. After the long-ass level, you just get your shit rocked by a guy with major combos, 2 health bars, and incredibly fast attacks. He literally teleports. The saving grace, though, he takes a lot of damage from shotgun parries, and there's pretty much at least one parry window in all of his attack patterns. His parries are pretty weird, though, since they're not projectiles, so that took some learning. In my first attempt, I actually got through the first health bars, but that was just beginner's luck. I won't bore you with more yapping. It was a badass fight.
So concludes the life and times of King Sisyphus. A fitting end to an existence defined by futile struggle. Doomed from the very start. And I don't regret a second of it.
And boom! Finally beat him. In case you were curious, I had 35 deaths on Sisyphus alone. Yep, that's awesome. But what you're probably curious about now is, how did I do overall on P-2? Jesus Christ, why did it have to be that number? It took me 67 resets. No, I'm not making this up. This isn't a bit. Ignoring the brain rot number, I did pretty damn bad. 45 minutes on one run, but you know what? I beat him, and that's all that matters to me. In case you were curious, I did go back and beat him 2 more times to knock that number down. One run took me 15 restarts, another took me 11, which I don't think is terrible. But then I realized I'm gonna have to do all of that with no deaths and a much better style score. So yeah, no thanks. That's an issue for future me when the final act fully releases. Anyways, let's wrap this video up with some neat stats. Overall, I had 6 resets in the prologue, 29 resets on Act 1, 27 on Act 2, and a whopping 67 resets on Sisyphus Prime, excluding the 2 bonus runs, which leaves us with a grand total of 129 resets to unlock and beat Sisyphus. But because I think it's cool, here's a pie chart for the total results. As you can see, yeah, Sisyphus took a lot. Anyways, that's all for this video. Just to clarify, since I did a lot of complaining, I love the secret area for Act 2. The whole level and boss fight is a crazy good challenge, and kinda scares me for what Act 3 is gonna have in store. Will I P rank it eventually? Maybe. Just kidding. Absolutely. Will it be anytime soon? I have no idea. Depends on whenever I feel like it. Also, kinda funny timing with this video releasing right when Fraud got dropped. Unfortunately, all the footage was done like 2 weeks ago, so it was not in my schedule. But I will be playing it. Finally, if you made it this far, you should subscribe. Please, it would be awesome to hopefully hit 1,000 subscribers this year in the big 2-6. And yeah, that's all I got to say. So again, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time.